Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. The general elections are finally over. The last and the 9th phase took place today. 41 seats voted, 18 of them in Uttar Pradesh, 17 in West Bengal and 6 in Bihar. With that, all 543 seats have now voted and the results, of course, are this Friday. While I know that exit polls are underway across many other news channels tonight, NDTV's exit poll is coming up in just a couple of days, but we will try and bring you in about 30 minutes from now a poll of polls. So we'll bring you an average at least of what all the other news channels are saying. The numbers are quite varied. I would say pretty much it's anyone's guess as to what the numbers finally will be on the 16th of May. But tonight we're going to look back at this election campaign and ask whether this was India's most polarizing election. Did this election divide India like never before? We'll talk about that in the next 60 minutes with our panel. But first, let's tell you what the turnout has been in this general election. And it turns out that it is the highest ever turnout that India has ever seen. The highest ever voter turnout of 66.38% that the Election Commission says is expected to go up once more figures come in over the next day or so. It's an increase of 8%, more than 8% since the last general election. The previous record was the 1984 general election when the voter turnout was 64%. We will ask our panel why they believe it's been such a high turnout. Part of it, of course, has been the Election Commission that has really gone into overdrive in this campaign to get more people to come out and vote. So you've had more people who've registered to vote. There's been greater awareness. Whether this means anti-incumbency or not, we'll just have to wait and see. But the big battle today, of course, was in Varanasi, where you have Narendra Modi versus Arvind Kejriwal versus Ajay Rai of the Congress party. And much like what happened in Amethi the other day, today in Varanasi as well, charges and counter-charges flew thick and fast. Ajay Rai, in fact, had an FIR registered against him for entering a polling booth wearing the Congress party's symbol on his kurta. Whereas Narendra Modi gave a video message from his office in Gandhinagar, which the Congress objected to. So all in all, a pretty eventful day. The battle for the prestige seat of Varanasi, a very important one. Anand Zanane has more.
The world's largest election ended, but the bitterness did not. In Varanasi, the most high-profile battle of this election, history repeated itself. This time, Congress in the dock, with its candidate Ajay Rai wearing his party symbol the hand while standing in the voting queue. Promptly, BJP invoked the FIR against Narendra Modi.
When there is a violation of the Model Code of Conduct, it must be properly taken to the logical conclusion, so that there is no impression that different parties are being treated differently.
Ajay Rai says his case was different from Mr. Modi's.
मैंने जानबूझकर मैंने कोई हाथ में लेकर नहीं दिखाया या मैंने सर पर बांध के दिखाया, बस एक रूटीन वे में जो जिस तरीके से लगा रहता है उसी तरह से सिंबल लगा हुआ है.
Nevertheless, the Election Commission ordered an FIR against Rai, the same action that Modi faced in Gandhinagar. Ironically, Varanasi's sitting BJP MP, who was evicted from his seat to make way for the BJP's prime ministerial candidate, appeared to defend Modi's Congress rival. Mr. Rai faces a tough contest despite pitching himself as the insider. And in the bitter battle for the holy city with prestige at stake, appeals continued virtually till the last minute. Reports emerged that various politicians were still lobbying hard with religious clerics despite campaign officially ending on Saturday.
मौलाना अब्दुल बातिन साहब जो चीफ मुफ्ती हैं बनारस के जी, तो उनके पास दिग्विजय सिंह का भी टेलीफोन आया, दुआ के लिए अपील की, वो खास तौर से अजय राय के लिए कर रहे थे बात.
On Sunday, Shehre Mufti Maulana Abdul Batin, an influential cleric, told the media that Muslims should ensure there is no division of votes, but he did so without openly endorsing any party. Last night, the Mufti Board of Varanasi issued a written appeal asking voters to support Aam Aadmi Party chief Arvind Kejriwal. As the day progressed, the Election Commission battled a series of complaints. BJP objected to these stickers of Akhilesh and Mulayam on laptops in polling booths. Congress complained about Narendra Modi's speech, asking voters to turn up in large numbers. And the Aam Aadmi Party claimed its polling agents were refused entry into polling booths. But in the end, it was the zest for vote that won. A 110-year-old voter came with a pledge to vote till he dies.
जब तक जिंदा रहेंगे, वोट आता रहेगा तो देते रहेंगे.
And Banaras's homegrown poets walked to the polling booth with a poem dipped in satire.
राजनीति में मैंने देखा आए गए हैं कितने राम, जय सिया राम जय जय सिया राम। तो दिन में नाम राम का लेते, रात में लेते 200 ग्राम, जय सिया राम जय जय सिया राम।
With Rahul Srivastav and Anand Zanane in Varanasi, Rohit Rajan for NDTV.
Well, let's first talk about that battle in Varanasi, where suddenly there has been much talk in the last few days about the tough fight that Arvind Kejriwal seems to be giving Narendra Modi there. And I'll take that question first to Prashant Bhushan. Mr. Bhushan, Arvind Kejriwal, of course, a giant killer in Delhi when he defeated Sheila Dikshit. Many don't believe that he would be able to repeat that in Varanasi, but he certainly seems to be giving Mr. Modi a tough fight.
Yes, you see, Mr. Modi has been relying on this media hype as well as this huge propaganda machine and this huge propaganda campaign which has been designed by advertising companies with the backing of thousands of crores of corporate money. Now, that way you can certainly manufacture consent, fool some of the people. But when there is an intensive campaign on the ground, when people start questioning these claims and engage with the people on the ground about these claims which are being made through this massive propaganda campaign, then things change. Because when people have an opportunity to actually critically examine these claims or this hype which has been built up through the media, through this massive propaganda, then certainly the reality confronts the people, and then people can take a really informed decision. In Varanasi, this whole all these kind of claims about this development in Gujarat, his claims about being a secular person, etc., all those came to be critically examined because of this intensive ground level campaign done by Arvind and the Aam Aadmi Party in Varanasi. And it's the result of that, when people can actually see what is the reality, that they come out with what they feel about this. So therefore Varanasi, in my view, will be a good test case of what the people really feel about Mr. Modi's claims, about Mr. Modi's persona, what they actually feel, because this, in Varanasi at least, it will largely be an election where the ground reality has also been seen by the people, apart from this propaganda.
That's an important statement you make, that you believe that Varanasi will be a good test case for Mr. Modi's claims and so on. And I'll take that to Mr. Javadekar, that Arvind Kejriwal actually today said, Mr. Javadekar, that he thinks the contest is really only between him and Narendra Modi in Varanasi. Would you concede that certainly in the last legs of this campaign, Arvind Kejriwal is putting up a pretty spirited fight in Varanasi?
See, democracy, everybody has a right to fight. And he has even freedom to declare himself winner, no matter, till Friday. Friday will be the actual result day, when the whole propaganda will collapse. The issue is, the Aam Aadmi Party is exposed thoroughly in this election. And two questions which were asked by their own founding members, which remained unanswered. These are important. They asked two questions. Why they don't talk about Naveen Jindal or any Jindal? Because their 6,000 volunteers are paid 25,000 per month. That is one. Second, they did not speak. They did not. The officer who reversed the Khemka's decision about mutation of Vadra land, he was given the ticket. So on these two issues, they could not answer anything. So they remained always silent. So the issue is, our party is a hoax which will be exposed, which is already exposed in the country. So when the whole country is discussing exit poll, NDTV chose to discuss the same Modi hate campaign. They can continue it.
Mr. Javadekar, we actually have our exit poll in 2 days. Thank you for deciding our programming agenda, but we do have our exit poll in 2 days. At least everybody will watch it then, because right now everyone's flipping between all the other channels.
So my observation, my observation about this Banaras fight or the country over this, sir, there are 3 specific things. One, there is overall voting increase of nearly 10% throughout the country. It is more than 84 election also, as you are showing. It is a good thing. And election commission and the people must be credited for it, because they now are voting decisively for a decisive government. They want to give a decisive mandate. Second, Congress has lost at least 10% vote in each state. That is the story of this election. And the third story important is BJP has increased not only partners, but vote base. NDA has gained over and about 2009 at least 14 to 15% vote. From 19% of BJP, we are going to 32% plus NDA's votes. Put together, it's a sizable thing, and that has made a decisive change. And so, exit polls which are predicting 280 seats or 290 seats, we are sure that exact polls, when they will appear on Friday, it will be a NDA day and we will cross 300. Because people want non-corrupt
always look at all exit and opinion polls with a pinch of salt, and even we say that because I would urge you to take a look at the Economic Times today, which has done a terrific graphic actually on how every exit poll last time was wrong and off the mark. I'm not saying they'll all be wrong this time. There's certainly clearly an anti-Congress wave in the country.
You are also doing.
No, we're also doing it, and we always say you never know whether they could be right or wrong. But on this issue of a high turnout, which you also raised, Gaurav Bhatia, does that indicate to you that something in the voters has changed this time? Now, in the past, high voter turnouts haven't necessarily indicated anti-incumbency either. Mr. Modi has won repeatedly in Gujarat with higher voter turnouts. So has Shivraj Singh Chauhan when the voter turnouts have been higher. So it's not necessarily indicative of anti-incumbency, but it's certainly, it seems this time, indicative of an anti-Congress mood. Would you agree?
Nidhi, I think it is very encouraging, and it is one of the few positives of this election that there has been a high voter turnout. And the reasons, I would say, is mainly one, that there was a lot of awareness. The Election Commission of India was able to reach out to voters. Second is there are number of first-time voters who were not just very eager to vote, but they also very actively participated in rallies and in day-to-day politics. I think that is also a reason why we saw this high voter turnout. And necessarily, the high voter turnout would not just mean that there would be anti-incumbency and the ruling parties would go out. And the reason for saying this is because in a number of states where the regional parties are doing well, I have seen in the state of UP a lot of youngsters who might be first-time voters or second-time voters are still going for the Samajwadi Party, because they are actively now participating in politics, and I think that is a very welcoming sign. On the flip side, I would say there have been, we thought it would be an election of development. It hasn't been. It has been a very divisive election, a very communal election, and a very personal one too. I think that needs to be changed. There is another clear sign that the Election Commission of India needs to be given more power to handle these situations. A censure or a snub is not enough, and there need to be a body that is in control and can pass serious orders. I think these are a few things that we have seen in this election. But on BJP and SP and other parties, I would only like to say that all these exit polls, I was watching all the channels, and they had contradictory numbers. Someone is giving some party 10 seats, the other channel is showing that party is not getting any seat in that state. So I think we should not go by the exit polls and should wait for the 16th when the results would be out, and these numbers would be misleading. Many of the channels are showing that the BJP is getting a very good number. I think those would be proven wrong, because the reality on ground is very different.
Well, you know, we're going to just give me about 5 minutes. We do have one poll of polls we've managed to put together with some of the news channels. So we'll give you an average of what we've been able to compile so far in just a moment, and then maybe Mr. Javadekar will smile when he hears that number. But Mr. C.R. Kesavan, let me take this question to you on what Gaurav Bhatia said about this being the most divisive, communal and personalized election, and that the EC needing to therefore have more powers to deal with these and go beyond censure. Would the Congress party agree with that? Has that really been the takeaway from this election about how nasty it has got? And do you believe the fact that it was a 9-phase election contributed to that?
See, I think it has definitely been one of, the intense polarized elections, and I think it's because the BJP decided to make it about a personality and not a policy-based campaign. As you see, Nidhi, first time in history the BJP even failed to release the manifesto even after people in Assam and Tripura started voting. That shows how much of focus on a personality they've concentrated on. Unfortunately, Modi ji turned out to be a polarizing personality, and that has been reflected all throughout the campaign, whether it is blatant polarization in Muzaffarnagar when they had candidates involved in the riots being put up for Lok Sabha, or even fetting people like Suresh Rana and Sangeet Soman Agra, or they used hate ventriloquism through Mr. Giriraj or Ramdas Kadam. Sometimes symbolic polarization, whether it was in Faizabad using religious symbols or saying people who only worship Ma Durga can come back inside. It's a very unfortunate campaign because this should have been about development. And I think the sad part is when the communal card failed, they even stooped to the level of caste. I think, Winston Churchill, termed it terminological inexactitude for lies. When caste was not brought up, they said, it was a protection for the last phases of UP and Bihar, they brought in caste. And people like, Mr. Ramdev made such sad comments about the Dalit community. And I think this has really divided people. And coming back to the EC Nidhi, they have also BJP has managed to polarize the trust. There is a lot of distrust towards the EC. I agree. Certain steps by the EC could have been more strong, but I think you should commend the way in which the Election Commission has functioned despite all odds. This is the biggest election in the world. This is the biggest democracy. And I think by, calling them into question and slandering them, I think we are really undermining democracy. And I honestly feel, leave the political jibes apart. I think the way the BJP has attacked the Election Commission, I think they're really in the grip of failure. They probably think they're not going to make it. The kind of hype and, hyperboles in terms of numbers which is being projected. I think they probably say the election was not free or fair, and that is why we didn't make the numbers. And
okay,
I think it's sad that the BJP has undermined
I just want to get a quick
constitutional bodies.
I want to get a quick comment from Mr. Prashant Bhushan on this question of the way the poll was conducted in terms of the number of phases. Because there's been a lot of debate on that, Mr. Bhushan, about, of course, the Election Commission has done a difficult and a commendable job. It's not easy to conduct elections in this country, but 9 phases really, by any stretch of imagination, is a very long poll. Do you think that contributed to the kind of volatile campaign and bitter campaign that we saw? I mean, bitter is an understatement, wasn't it, for this campaign?
Well, I'm not sure whether the length of the campaign contributed to that or not, but certainly this campaign was unique in the sense that we have never seen so much money. We have seen campaigns earlier like the India Shining campaign, or even the 1984 or the 89 campaign, where a lot of money was spent at that time by the Congress party with a professional ad agency for building a brand or trying to make certain issues the theme of the campaign. But we have never seen this kind of an election campaign where particularly one party, that is the BJP, goes on a propaganda and advertising blitz, spending literally more than 5,000 crores on this propaganda advertising blitz in a campaign which is designed by professional ad agencies around one person, and trying to build the myth of this one person as being a superman who is a champion of development, who is a secular person, a very, very elaborate exercise of brand building around this one person, Mr. Modi, has gone in this campaign.
So I'll take that to Mr. Javadekar.
A lot of media organizations.
That's an important point about campaign spending.
And a lot of opinion poll organizations have participated in that same exercise. Today, for example, literally tens of thousands of crores of money in the stock market is riding on these exit polls. And given what we have seen and what we have systematically seen in the last 3 elections about the manner in which the same kind of market was taken up on the hope of an NDA victory, on the belief of an NDA victory through these opinion polls and exit polls, and thereafter the market crashed, etc. There is very, very little doubt that this kind of money of these market manipulators which is pumped into the stock market
let me take that point to Mr. Javadekar. I'll take that
Nidhi,
to 5,000 crores.
Mr. Make a quick point.
Gaurav, one sec. 5,000 crores is a huge figure that the AAP is throwing at you, Mr. Javadekar, and the brand building around one man. Now, that is another aspect of this election to talk about. The personality cult of Mr. Modi, who made this in a sense a presidential style campaign where he was the only presidential candidate, and the kind of money that was spent around brand Modi. Mr. Javadekar.
So, if 5,000 crore rupees is what we spend, so NDTV with its place in the media must have received at least 100 crores. So, you are able to tell us whether you have received it or not, and you will not do it free. So, the issue is, this is falsehood. This is absolutely wrong. We submit our reports because these are all bills. The newspapers and media don't do it for cash. They do it with receipts. And when you issue receipts, there is a trail. And so this is the AAP and Congress propaganda. Congress knows 5,000 crore, 10,000 crores because they have done it in lakhs of crores, corruption. But people have contributed so large amount, and we have spent not 1/20th of what he is saying. So that is the issue. The 5% even is not correct. So that is 90%, 95% is falsehood.
That is not correct.
That is the AAP strategy. I can also go extensively. The issue is we did it effectively. Raj Babbar went to Dhulia, had a meeting, and he's a good speaker. And he was speaking, and in a flow of his speech, it was a Congress propaganda meeting, and he said that this is why, और इसीलिए अब की बार जैसे ही said अब की बार तो लोगों ने कहा मोदी सरकार. He left the meeting in half and half. So this is the impact of our effective advertisement.
Before I get Gaurav in, I just want Mr.
Bharat Bhushan to come in. With good advertisement.
Gaurav, one second. Let's talk about the 2 or 3 important landmarks of this election.
Sure.
Manipur, the personality cult of Mr. Modi, the divisive and bitter campaign that this has been. What else?
Well, you see, this thing has been polarized and divisive election.
I don't subscribe that this was a polarized.
I'll come to you, sir. One moment. I'll just get Mr. Bhushan in and I'll come to you.
It was most neutral.
Yes,
really? Yes. Yeah, but one sentence. This was most neutral. This was most neutral and development-oriented discourse and debate in the election.
I completely disagree that it was either, frankly, but anyway, yes.
Well,
I think it was for the fault of all parties, actually.
I think it was an extremely divisive election, and for the following reasons. One, the personality of the chief protagonist of BJP, Mr. Narendra Modi, is a divisive personality. Two, the BJP itself is a party that is divisive. The RSS, which is the mother organization of these Hindutva outputs, is also divisive and put its full force behind this election. Then it was divisive because communal riots were fanned and then made use of by another divisive person, that is Mr. Amit Shah, who was in charge of UP. So you saw Muzaffarnagar riots, and 2 days before the Banaras polls, you had BJP Uttar Pradesh putting on their Facebook page images of the communal riot in which didn't really grow in Meerut. But most importantly, I think what has happened because of this prolonged election, the question you're asking again and again, and I think here the election commission is at fault. When you have an election going on to 9 phases, over a 2-month period, yes, parties will polarize to their own benefit. But politicians immediately after the elections are willing to shake hands for opportunistic reasons. But you divide the polity and divide the society on communal lines and religious lines so deeply, along caste lines so deeply, that healing those divisions will take a lot of time. And that is what worries me more than the divisive personality of Mr. Modi.
So in that sense, this has been a watershed election, you would say?
It's been a watershed election. I hope the Election Commission takes the right lessons from this. You know, you can probably reduce the number of phases. Do it in 3 phases or 4 phases. Because this is crazy, because political parties have to think of new controversies every day to polarize people.
Okay, let me just get Gaurav Bhatia in on this very interesting question.
Can I come in?
Yeah, Gaurav, I have a question for you, which is that apart from being polarizing perhaps on a communal scale, what I found interesting about this election is the kind of, in the way it has divided even friends and family. I mean, you go onto a Facebook page of a friend and the kind of angry back and forth that goes on, largely debated again around Mr. Modi and his politics and so on. In that sense, did you also find this unique? In the kind of discussion and dialogue people had just amongst themselves, even in their living rooms. This has been, in that sense, also a very divisive election.
No, I agree with you, Nidhi, completely, that within my friend circle as well as my family as well, there have been very strong opinions from people that I know of. And that could be because, you know, it was the campaign. Media also played a very important role. They were showing very relevant stories on every candidate in constituency. Every individual was forming his or her own opinion. And I think that was the guiding force. So within the families, we saw that there were very sharp differences. But a very important point, Nidhi, that I think the Election Commission of India has done a commendable job with the limited resources that it had. And for future elections, we need electoral reforms. Nobody can doubt that. Two, the Election Commission of India needs to have its own paraphernalia and manpower to supervise the election and not just depend completely on the bureaucracy of the state. And also, I think the social media would be playing a very big role from here onwards. Therefore, there needs to be some sort of mechanism to even monitor the social media. I'll give you an example. A party has an edge when it comes to social media because they started early and they spent a huge amount. And if you say anything against that party, you would suddenly see that these people who are located at various places working for the party would start targeting you, would start, making hate messages against your party and the person representing the party. So I think, therefore the lesson is that yes, it needs to be regulated, plus the party, other parties
but
also
Gaurav, there's another point. I want to ask both
with,
you and Prashant Bhushan this, because you both have
even
to leave.
In the social media.
No, Prashant Bhushan, this whole personality-driven election, now that's another important point. Is that a good thing for Indian democracy or a bad thing? I mean, in a sense, an attempt was made maybe by the BJP to make it more a presidential style, but it was a very unequal contest because the Congress didn't really project a face. Many say Arvind Kejriwal has done the same because it's a lot of the AAP has to do with Arvind Kejriwal's personality. Is it good for India to have that kind of a personality-driven election?
No, I don't think it's good for India. I don't think it's good for democracy. Democracy means rule by the people, and that is why power for deciding things should remain in the hands of the people at large, not in the hands of a few people, or especially not in the hands of one person. That's very, very dangerous. That's not even democratic. And that is why we have been saying that this country needs serious democracy reforms. This system where democracy means only voting once in 5 years, electing your representatives, and thereafter those representatives ruling you for the next 5 years and taking all the decisions, this is not real democracy. That's why we have been fighting for decentralized direct democracy at the local level, as well as participation of the people even at the higher level of district, states and the nation, through a system of initiatives and referendums. But unfortunately, the BJP's campaign has centered around just one person, as if this one person, if he were to rule the country, if he were to decide everything in this country, everything, that this will bring Ram Raj. This is the result of a very elaborate advertising campaign, just as toothpaste or soap is advertised. The same way Mr. Modi's brand was sought to be built and advertised through a massive propaganda blitz.